Today, we're diving headfirst into a seriously intense divide that is absolutely reshaping higher education as we know it. I mean, we're not talking about polite classroom debates over coffee here. No, we're looking at a high-stakes ideological battle that is fundamentally altering the entire landscape of academia. To really grasp just how severe this issue has become, we have to start with a, frankly, shocking reality. We are literally seeing cases right now where American academics feel so pressured, and in some instances genuinely physically threatened, that they are packing up their families and fleeing the United States. They're heading to places like Spain and Canada. So you've got to ask yourself, how on earth did we get to a point where university faculty feel completely forced into exile? Section 1. The Exodus. Well, to see the real human cost of this clash, let's look at the highly publicized case of Rutgers University historian Mark Bray. So, back in 2017, Professor Bray published a book called Antifa, the Anti-Fascist Handbook, which explored the history of anti-fascist movements. Okay, pretty standard academic stuff, right? But fast forward to September 2025. Charlie Kirk, the founder of the right-wing youth organization Turning Point USA, is tragically shot at an event. Right on the heels of that, in October 2025, President Trump officially labels Antifa a domestic terror organization. Almost overnight, conservative student activists launched this massive, viral petition demanding Bray be fired for his research on the group. By late 2025, that online pressure morphs into severe, real-world threats, and Bray actually ends up fleeing to Spain. And the escalation here was just terrifying. I mean, consider the kind of threats sent to Professor Bray. One literally stated, "We will cut off your children's heads." It's completely chilling. According to the source material, he was also getting messages containing the numbers 1488, which is a well-known neo-Nazi code referencing Hail Hitler. Bray is a father of 2 young children, and he described this agonizing anxiety of just trying to board a plane out of the country. He was dealing with mysterious flight cancellations, getting pulled aside by federal agents at the airport, all while his kids were crying in panic. This is the extreme, real-world danger that is prompting faculty to abandon their lives. Section 2. Students demand action. Now, to truly understand this whole divide, we absolutely have to look at the perspective of the conservative student activists who are initiating these campaigns. Groups like Turning Point USA, they've actually been organizing around this for years. Back in 2016, they created the Professor Watch List to pinpoint academics they believe promote left-wing extremism. You see, for these students, exposing what they view as dangerous or violent rhetoric isn't just politics, it's a necessary defense. Take a student named Evan, who actually started the petition against Mark Bray. She explicitly stated that as a conservative student on campus, she felt genuinely threatened by Bray's alleged violent rhetoric. She felt her own voice was being totally suppressed by the university. And that brings us to the absolute core of this ideological clash. It's like 2 completely different realities. On one side, you've got the student activists. They genuinely believe they are whistleblowers, exposing dangerous rhetoric to ensure campus safety. But then, on the flip side, you have the faculty and union perspective. Leaders like Rutgers Higher Education Union President Rebecca Jeevan argue that this is nothing short of a targeted attack on academic freedom and legitimate historical research. This mindset is perfectly crystallized by Michael Joseph, a former Turning Point USA chapter president at Rutgers. He argues that someone like Mark Bray is not an academic at all, but an activist inciting violence. So in his view, and this is absolutely key, petitioning to fire faculty members isn't about suppressing free speech, not at all. To them, it's a required common-sense response to administrative policies they view as dangerous to their community. They firmly believe that free speech simply does not protect those who they feel promote violence. Section 3. Academic freedom under fire. Now, when students and outside political forces start demanding that professors be removed, it seriously shakes the foundation of how higher education even operates. We need to understand what's really at stake here: academic freedom. This is the foundational rule that scholars must be free to teach, research, and communicate controversial, even unpopular ideas without the fear of targeted repression, censorship, or losing their livelihoods. It is literally the bedrock of intellectual inquiry. And right now, it's the exact principle universities are struggling to uphold under this immense public pressure. And this is absolutely vital to note, this isn't just a one-sided issue where only left-wing professors are being targeted. Not at all. The political pressure on universities is coming from all directions, and conservative professors are also facing severe administrative crackdowns for their own controversial speech. So it's clear this crisis really has a dual nature. On the left side of the spectrum, we have Mark Bray, targeted by right wing student petitions for his far left research. And then right over on the other side, we have Amy Wax, a conservative law professor at the University of Pennsylvania. She was actually recently suspended for an entire year at half pay following accusations of making discriminatory remarks against non white individuals. It just brilliantly illustrates how both left wing and right wing academics are getting completely caught in the crossfire of this overarching institutional war. Professor Wax's response to her suspension is actually incredibly telling. She stated, "There is a reason they call it a culture war. In a war, people get hurt." Think about that for a second. It really emphasizes a grim reality. The people involved in these disputes, from the students to the faculty to the administrators, they don't see this as some polite academic debate anymore. To them, it is a high-stakes battle for survival, for power, and for the ideological control of American institutions. Section 4, the institutional dilemma. As a result, the universities themselves are just buckling under this extreme political pressure coming from both the left and the right simultaneously. And the multi-layered impacts, they're severe. Universities are facing demands for ideological purges from rival factions, which leads to a rampant increase in faculty self-censorship. People are just terrified of ending up on a watch list. This completely erodes the autonomy of the institution itself. The source material even draws some really chilling historical parallels to Turkey, noting that President Erdogan used political pressure to crush academic autonomy and force hundreds of scholars into exile. And honestly, we're seeing echoes of that right now in North America, with these suspensions and forced exiles becoming more common. Section 5. The future of universities. So what does this all mean? What are the broader systemic implications this divide holds, not just for higher ed, but for our democratic society as a whole? Well, we can turn to the rather grave perspective of scholars like Jason Stanley. He's a renowned philosopher and scholar of fascism. Watching this whole cultural shift unfold, Stanley actually left his position in the US and relocated to the University of Toronto in Canada. Drawing on his own family's history of surviving the Holocaust, he fears that targeting universities and intellectual hubs is always the very first tactical step toward authoritarianism. For him, the signs are so incredibly alarming that he bluntly states the American democratic project is effectively over. When you connect this campus divide directly to the larger, escalating political fracture happening across the entire country, well, the stakes become crystal clear. Universities have traditionally been our society's bastions of free speech. They are the incubators for challenging ideas. If they buckle, we face this immense danger of creating purely ideological echo chambers where students only ever hear what they already believe. And even worse, the normalization of political intimidation on campus, whether we're talking about viral petitions, administrative suspensions, or literal death threats, it creates a terrifying blueprint for how to silence opposition in the wider society. So, as the battle lines on campus harden, and as both students and professors dig deeper into their defensive trenches, a massive void is opening up in our culture. If our universities, the very institutions designed from the ground up to foster inquiry and protect open debate, if they can no longer guarantee the safety of those who ask the difficult questions, where does society turn for the truth? It's a profound question that demands our attention, because the answer is absolutely going to shape the future of our society.